Good day, everyone. We are from Group 4, and I am Teresa Junior Auditor, and we will report about developmentalism, environmentalism, and ecologism.
So, our lesson learning outcomes for today's report is that at the end of the discussion, students will be able to first identify what is the main concept of developmentalism, environmentalism, and ecologism for sustainable development. Second, understand the importance of developmentalism, environmentalism, and ecologism for sustainable development in our environment. And lastly, relate how developmentalism, environmentalism, and ecologism advocates towards sustainable development by creating a jingle.
So, developmentalism. So, for you, what is developmentalism? So, I know you have the thought about developmentalism. You can comment below your thought about it. So, for us, developmentalism in relation to sustainable development is an attempt to cope with environmental degradation, which advocates in introducing greener technologies and conserving biodiversity. So developmentalism, it is somewhat we have able to see right now. There are a lot of technologies that eco-friendly. So we call this developmentalism because it cannot harm our environment. Instead, it could contribute for our environment. In relation with that, green tech, or what we call green technology, it also refers to any type of technology that is considered environmentally friendly based on its production process or its supply chain. It can also refer to clean energy production that use the alternative fuels and technologies that are less harmful to the environment than fossil fuels. It describes the use of technology and science to reduce human impacts in the natural environment. So now we have examples of green technologies we have seen in our country. First, we have solar panels. So I know you all are familiar about solar panels. Yes, and solar panels can produce electricity within our household using the sunlight of our sun. Also, we have here windmill. We have seen this in Ilocos. So that windmill can produce electricity to hundreds of their houses in their community. So it would have a lesser impact in our environment, but it would have a great impact to our household. So also we have this recycling technologies. As of now, we have seen a lot of recycling technologies. We have seen the recycle of plastic bottles. It becomes chair, tables, and other products that produces our recycling bottles. We also have our bayongs, the product of recycling. So as of now, less use of our plastic bags. We use bayongs, eco bag that is eco-friendly, and it could have a great impact in our environment. So it is a good practice for us to have that, since our environment could reflect us, and we are supposed to care about environment, because without our environment we were not able to survive in this world, in this planet, because the use of our environment gives us everything that we want in life to survive. That's the goal of green technology. The goal of green tech is to protect environment, repair damage done to the environment in the past, and conserve the Earth's natural resources. Green tech has also become a growing industry that has attracted enormous amounts of investment capital. Alternative energy, electric vehicles, and sustainable agriculture and recycling are types of green technology. To elaborate it more, the goal of green technology is to preserve our environment, our natural resources. So they are trying to make technologies that eco-friendly, that couldn't harm our environment or our resources, or it could have a less harm for our environment. As of now, I could see the improvement of the goal of green tech. A lot of technologies are now arising that are eco-friendly, and it can produce products that useful to us human beings, and it cannot harm our environment. So one practices that I like as of now that are arising is our solid or our waste management. So we often use that in our household to segregate from biodegradable, the non-biodegradable and hazardous. So as I can see right now, if we continue doing that one, it could have a great impact in our environment. So as human beings, we need to act with that. We need to start in our household because the green tech will not achieve their goal if we humans would not understand the impact of it. So we should have to work about it. Next, we have biodiversity conservation. So, first of all, what is biodiversity? So, biodiversity is all the different kinds of life you'll find in one area. The variety of animals, plants, fungi, and even microorganisms like bacteria that make up our natural world. Each of these species organisms work together in ecosystem like the intricate web to maintain the balance and support of life. So, here in Gundulman, my hometown, we have here the Gindulman Sanctuary, where we could see a lot of species of fishes that we are preserving as of now. And our LGU or our environmentalists in our hometown are is protecting that area because they want to provide more species of fishes and coral reefs in our hometown. So in relation with sustainable development, so biodiversity conservation is the protection and management of biodiversity to obtain resources for sustainable development. So when we say biodiversity conservation, so we need to act with it. So a lot of our animals are now having their low population because of our practices human. We keep on destroying their places, their habitat. So we need to act with it right now. We need to conserve them because they could have the balance of our world. We could also live without them. We couldn't live without them because they were the one of the sources that to have the balance of our world, the biodiversity. Biodiversity conservation has three main objectives. First, to preserve the diversity of species. Second, sustainable utilization of species and ecosystem. Third, to maintain life supporting system, an essential ecological process. And it can preserve in the following ways. In situ conservation. Biodiversity is the conservation of species within their habitat. In this method, the natural ecosystem is maintained and protect certain protected areas within situ conservation takes place include national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and other reserves. So, in ex situ conservation, biodiversity involves the breeding and maintaining the endangered species in artificial ecosystem, such as zoos, nurseries, botanical gardens, gene banks, and etc. There is less competition for food, water, and space among the organisms. So, as what I've said, there are sanctuaries or the natural habitat. It was included in situ conservation. So, our animals are free to go with their natural habitat like the forest or for fishes like the sea. And with ex situ conservation, they use the zoos or wildlife kind of places that could really breed the animals that can produce more genes of it and it could have a good environment for them to grow, especially for those endangered species like our Philippine eagle, the monkeys. In Bohol, we have here the tarsiers. In the Philippines, the Protect Wildlife Project was launched in 2016 in the collaboration with Conservation International, USAID, and other partners to combat the threats of wildlife and the causes of biodiversity loss in the Philippines, while taking into consideration environmental threats such as habitat loss, unsustainable harvesting, and population. The project engaged community members of various groups and rules to encourage their ownership and commitment to their land, forests, and seas, and the empowers locals of safety conduct and the ground patrols with knowledge and training.
Good day, everyone. I'm Vanessa Arcayera, and now let's proceed with environmentalism and ecologism. First, let's talk about environmentalism. So what is environmentalism? Environmentalism advocates the preservation, restoration, and improvement of the natural environment and critical Earth system elements or processes such as the climate, and may be referred to as a movement to control pollution or protect plant and animal diversity. So, environmentalism is an attempt to balance relations between humans and the various natural systems on which they depend in such a way that all the components are accorded a proper degree of sustainability. The exact measures and outcomes of this balance is controversial, and there are so many different ways for environmental concerns to be expressed in practice. So, environmentalism and environmental concerns are often represented by the color green, but this association has been appropriated by the marketing industries for the tactic known as greenwashing. So much for that. Environmentalism seeks to preserve the air and water we all depend upon, as well as conserve and protect entire ecosystems comprising of animals, plants, and humans found in different habitats throughout our planet. In various ways, environmentalism claims that living things other than humans and the natural environment as a whole are deserving of consideration in reasoning about the morality of political, economic, and social policies. Environmentalism as a movement covers broad areas of institutional oppression, including, for example, consumption of ecosystems and natural resources into waste, dumping waste into disadvantaged communities, air pollution, water pollution, weak infrastructure, expose of organic life to toxins, monoculture, anti-polythene drive or the Jola movement, and various other focuses. So with that, environmentalism, political and ethical movement that seeks to improve and protect the quality of the natural environment through changes to the environmentally harmful human activities, through the adoption of forms of political, economic, and social organizations that are thought to be necessary for, or at least conductive to, the benign treatment of the environment by humans, and through a reassessment of humanity's relationship with nature. Environmentalism is a movement and ideology that aims to reduce the impact of human activities on the earth and its various inhabitants. So, here are some of the global environment facility projects by World Wildlife Fund. Includes number 1, Coastal Fisheries Initiative, Indonesia. Ecosystem Approach to Fisheries Management, EAFM, in Eastern Indonesia. Fisheries Management Area, FMA, which is 715,717 and 718. Focal area is in biodiversity, climate change, mitigation, sustainable forest management. So in Indonesia, where 70 million people depend on the sea for food and income, this Coastal Fisheries Initiative works to improve coastal fisheries management and preserve the environment in 3 of the countries, 11 fisheries management areas. Those areas cover over 1.6 million square kilometers of coastal waters in eastern Indonesia and include some of the most biodiverse marine habitats on Earth. Promoting sustainable and equitable fisheries management and biodiversity conservation will positively impact the livelihoods and well-being of the local coastal peoples, while securing an essential source of global fish stocks. So that's the Coastal Fisheries Initiative in Indonesia. Number 2 is the Integrated Ridge-to-Reef Management of the Mesoamerican Reef. The focal area here is the land degradation. And the countries were in Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico. So the Mesoamerican reef is home to diverse coral reefs and over 500 fish species. Inland, the landscape supports important freshwater and terrestrial ecosystems. These landscapes face numerous threats, like tourism and border development are driving mangrove clearance, leading to sedimentation. Overfishing and climate change are negatively affecting the health of the region's coral ecosystems. The GEF-funded project integrated the ridge-to-reef management of the Mesoamerican reef, supports Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico to conserve their freshwater, coastal, and marine resources at a regional level. So in addition, the project supports active engagement with private sector actors, including Coca-Cola, to strengthen water funds. Through the project, improved management will be in place for 1,699,512 HA of watersheds and 157,800 hectares of coastal and marine ecosystems. So imagine, hinga na kadaghan o kadako, no? Ang gitabang sa GEF. So, number 3 is the sustainable land management in the Churia Range, Nepal. The focal area here is the biodiversity, land degradation, sustainable forest management. The Churia Range of southern Nepal is home to Asian elephants, one-horned rhinos, and Bengal tigers. It is also an important source of community livelihoods. To protect these areas, valuable resources from land degradation, the GEF-funded project, Sustainable Land Management in Churia Range, Nepal, has brought together 4 technical ministries for the first time. The Ministry of Agricultural Development, Ministry of Forest and Soil Conservation, Ministry of Land Reform and Management, WWF Nepal. The project promotes sustainable land and forest management practices alongside local community groups, working to improve the management of 7,500 HA of agropastoral and mixed forest land areas. So that's the sustainable land management in the Churia Range, Nepal. So for number 4, we have here integrated landscape management to secure Nepal's protected areas and critical corridors. So the focal area here is the biodiversity. So with the aim to build national capacity and an enabling environment for cross-sectoral coordination to promote forest and landscape conservation, the project will facilitate integrated planning for protected area, buffer zones, and critical corridors, and support sustainable management of forest in the Terai Arc landscape. A key focus in this endeavor will be placed on human and wildlife conflict mitigation and the adaptation of social safeguards for indigenous and marginalized communities. So the project will result in a reduction in the threats altering the biological corridors and protected areas, buffer zones in the TAL, enhancing the ecological integrity of the substantially forested areas, the globally significant wildlife populations, and the resilience of forest-dwelling communities. So, the improved conservation and sustainable management of forest resources will result in increased carbon storage, sequestration and restoration of degraded habitats, and continued delivery of ecosystem services that support local population. So, Next is number 5, the sustainable management of Madagascar's marine resources. So, expanding and consolidating Madagascar's marine protected areas network, and the focal area is the international waters. So, this project is strengthened management of Madagascar marine biodiversity and productivity in terms of their marine protected areas. That's it. So, in Philippines, we also experienced environmental problems that include pollution, illegal mining and logging, deforestation, threats to environmental activists, dynamite fishing, landslides, coastal erosion, biodiversity loss, extinction, global warming, and climate change. Therefore, our country launched and complete these projects from 2020. So in 2020, we have here the demonstration of BAT and BEP in open burning activities in response to the Stockholm Convention on POPs Regional. So, the project aims to create resource-efficient waste management systems by reducing unintentionally produced persistent organic pollutants emissions through the introduction of BAT and BEP in open burning sources and achieving approximately 90% reduction of the current polychlorinated dibenzo P-dioxines and polychlorinated dibenzofurans releases at pilot demonstration sites in participating countries. So, the project fulfills the objectives reported in the national implementation plans and specific national plans through involving national stakeholders and the private sector as executing partners, making a shift from burning of waste to recycling or reuse. Next is the ambitious city promises. So, the project, which is implemented by the ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, will provide assistance to project cities in Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam to establish and implement GHG emissions reduction strategies, taking into account the city's development pressures and local context, while also emphasizing the importance of citizen engagement and working with relevant national ministries. So, the project aims to help the Philippine cities of Pasig, Parañaque, and Marikina reduce their respective climate change driving greenhouse gases, or the GHG emissions. So, by capacitating these LGUs and engaging communities there on climate action through low-emission development strategies. So, next is Protect Wildlife Project. So, Protect Wildlife Project will provide focused effort and resources to align conservation policy with on-the-ground action and enforcement. It is designed to contribute to the reduction of threats to biodiversity and of poaching and use of illegally harvested wildlife and wildlife products. So, it adopts a multi-pronged and integrated ecosystems management approach that in the long term will improve ecosystem services and redound to increase wildlife conservation and human well-being. Next is the Forest Law Enforcement, Government, and Trade, or the FLEGT program. So, the FLEGT aims to reduce illegal logging, one of the causes of forest degradation, by supporting methods and practices that promote legal timber production, improved governance, and ultimately enable sustainable forest management. Next is the Integrated Natural Resources and Environmental Management Project, or the INREMP. So, the Integrated Natural Resource and Environmental Management Project is designed to strengthen the climate resilience of upland mountain communities by addressing unsustainable watershed management, introducing sustainable forest management options such as agroforestry, commercial forest plantation, and conservation farming to enhance watershed integrity and restore its functionality to provide vital ecosystem services, sustaining supply of goods. Example, wood, water, food, shelter, medicine. This is supposed to be achieved through enhancing private investments, viability, and economic contributions of forest-based industry. So, ensuring productive participation of various stakeholders and equitable sharing of benefits and institutional streamlining and capacitation. Lastly, strengthening national systems to improve governance and management of indigenous peoples and local communities conserved areas and territories. So the project aims to strengthen the conservation, protection, and management of key biodiversity sites in the Philippines by institutionalizing indigenous peoples and local communities' conserved areas and territories as a sustainable addition to the national protected area. Stay through strengthening the legal and regulatory framework and administrative procedures that harmonize the mandates, plans, and activities amongst national government agencies involved. It will improve capacity of indigenous peoples and key stakeholders for effective governance and management of ICCAs. The selected sites are key biodiversity areas that overlap with ancestral domains and represent a variety of governance models. So, for 2021, we have here the establishment of an integrated 3D GIS-based water resources management information system for the Pampanga River Basin WRMIS Phase 2 or the COICA. Next is the Healthy Oceans and Clean Cities initiatives. So, the Healthy Oceans and Clean Cities initiative is a regional project funded by the government of Japan and is being implemented by UN Habitat in the Philippines in cooperation with global, national, and local partners. So, HOCCI aims to help local governments and communities in the Philippines reduce marine plastic pollution in support of the implementation of the National Plan of Action on Marine Litter. The project seeks to address fundamental issues of plastic waste leakages to marine environment at 6 target cities in Cagayan de Oro, Calapan, Legazpi, Ormoc, Davao, and Manila, with different priority activities depending on the local context. Circular economy and reduce, reuse, recycle, or the 3Rs approaches will be harnessed to reduce marine plastic waste pollution as an integral part of an overall solid waste management program. So, to raise awareness and promote behavioral change with local communities to adopt 3Rs and circular economy approach, it also includes a comprehensive training and campaign component in partnership with cities, the private sector, the academe, and other stakeholder groups. And the last one is the ozone depleting substances extension of institutional strengthening project, phase 12. So with that, you probably take pretty good care of the place you live in. You clean it, you keep it warm, you carry out repairs when they need doing. You tidy the garden, you're nice to your neighbors and help them. When you can, generally speaking, you look after your home and its environment because your home looks after you. Our planet, Earth, is just as much our home, but we don't look after it anything like as well. We use its resources, we pollute it with trash, we plunder from our neighbors, other animals and plants without care. And we give little or no thought to what things will be like in the future. Never mind what shape things will be in for our children. So, with that, we need to really care our nature, because the nature is the reason why we sustain our life here in the world. So environmentalism is a different way of thinking in which people try to care more about the planet and the long-term survival of life on Earth. It means recognizing the planet's environmental problems and coming up with solutions, individually and collectively, that try to put them right. So that's environmentalism. Now let's proceed with ecology or ecologism. But first, let's talk about ecology. Ecology is the foundation of everything. Although ecology as a scientific discipline is relatively modern, studying the relationships between living beings and their environment is as old as mankind itself. In early hunter-gatherer societies, humans survived by understanding their ecosystem. Without a knowledge of the behavior patterns of animals, their migrations, the growth rates of plants, or the importance of water flows, our ancestors would not have been able to thrive and evolve into what we are today. It can, therefore, be said that without ecology, there would be no mankind. So with that, ecology seeks to understand the vital connections between plants and animals and the world around them. However, the transition to sedentary societies, the development of cities and civilization, and the technological advances increasingly removed ecology from popular knowledge. So as sedentary populations spread, cities and civilization grew, and technology advanced, ecology became less and less common knowledge. It was not until the 18th century, during the Enlightenment period, that the ecosystem started being studied from an increasingly scientific perspective. This study was soon to revolutionize history, as in 1859, Charles Darwin published The Origin of Species, changing the way we understand biology and the world forever. So, a few years after the publication of that book, the naturalist Ernst Haeckel, a great admirer and disseminator of Darwin's ideas, created the term ecology from the Greek words oikos, house, home, and logos, study, the study of the home. So today, ecology is the science that studies the relationship of living beings with their environment and with other species. It is a branch of biology and uses knowledge from many other disciplines such as geography, meteorology, and economics. With that, popularly, ecology is still associated with utopian values and concepts such as balance, harmony, and community. Despite the fact that scientists no longer see these values and concepts as relevant to the natural world, the common misunderstanding of ecology is in part a reflection of the fact that ecology is still a relatively young science, one that focuses on the complexity of the natural world, which is something it cannot study successfully in laboratory experiments, but must encounter through fieldwork and therefore under less than ideal conditions. Ecology's difficulties were for a long time compounded by its origin in natural history and in holistic or organismal ways of thinking, which were not through with forms of myth, metaphor, and allegory not always recognized as such by ecologists. Ecology was therefore sometimes dismissed as a point of view and not a true science. In fact, ecologists were often unable to confirm their expansive theories, some of which were at odds with the Darwinian theory of evolution, already becoming the backbone of biology by the last quarter of the 19th century. So, eco-criticism needs to be aware of ecology's record of underachievement. It also needs to be aware of the fact that in recent years, ecology has become a more reductive, more mechanistic science than it once was. One in which such relatively disheartening concepts as chaos, disturbance, patchiness, and stochasticity, example, random variation, are becoming increasingly central to both theory and field work. So that's it. Now I will turn over, or I will give the floor to Miss Camille Grace Kilaton to continue my discussion.
Hi everyone, my name is Camille Grace Arquilaton. I am the next reporter for today's topic. So, let's begin. Ecologist. So, in your idea, what is ecologist? So, ecologists are the scientists dedicated to ecology. So, ang ecologist di ay is an expert or a student for ecology. So, their work is fundamental because it gives us important data to understand how we affect our environment and what to do to protect it. So, ang mga ecologists di ay is sila ang maghatag og important data on unsaon ug unsay naapekto sa atong environment ug unsaon pag-protect sa atoang environment. So, ecologism, the return to the origin. Since its official beginnings in the 1960s, ecologism, often referred as environmentalism, has evolved greatly and today encompasses many areas of society. It is lifestyle, a social movement, and a political ideology. So, ang ecologism in 1960s it is a lifestyle, it is na kuan na nato nga lifestyle na siya, and it is an action taken by a group or of a people that tackle social problems. So kita man jud sa environment magproblema jud ta naa jud mga issues sa environment. So in political ideology, so many people or a group that explains how society should work. So ingana man jud ta kanang kita mangita jog solution sa ato ang problema. So which is it kanang na-return na siya sa origin is in 1960s. So nag-start na siya in 1960s. So ecologism is a movement that has been built up by many people because the feeling of wanting to protect our home is born naturally in us and is not particularly creation of anyone. So ang ecologism is kanang a movement kanang na build up na nato. So kita man yung Pilipino kanang anad na kayo tamo mag-amping, taking care to other person, taking care to anyone. So sana all giamping. So dili na siya need or mas nga ang atong environment need nga kanang kuan need og mutabang. It should be it should be volunteer ka mo nga mo help og unsa pag-develop og unsa pag-better sa atong environment. So ecologism cornerstone idea is the desire to protect our ecosystem and live it in sustainably. The rest of the ideas associated with ecologism cannot conflict with that objective and should always be analyzed, criticize, and replace when necessary. So, in ecologism, ang idea kuno is to protect ang ato ang environment to our ecosystem and unsaon paglive unsaon sa pamaagi nga mapuyo tag healthy life. So in the rest idea, ang ecologism dili na mo conflict. It is because kanang ang objective ni nila is ang objective na nila is gihimo na nilang pag-analyze, criticize o replace when it is necessary. If need na bangan kanang pulihan na jud. Like ingana ang mga ecologism, ingana ang ecologism. So there are times when environmentalists, especially activists, forget about these and fall into fantasism. This is especially harmful because ecologism relies on ecology and therefore the scientific method. So daghang times nga ang environmentalist is ma-fall into fantasism. So, in the search for the best way to achieve the common goal, ang ecologism has developed into multiple branches that approach environmental protection from different perspectives. So, since daghan man kayo tag problema, ang ecologism naggama og multiple branches aron dili na broad ang pag-focus sa environment. So which is eco-capitalism. Ana siya mo focus sa eco-capitalism. Ingana siya. Nana siya kanang branches para sa pag-protect ang environment ug unsa ay para ma-focus na jud ug unsaon pag-protect sa environment. So, the following is summary of some of the most influential trends in ecologism today: eco-capitalism, eco-socialism, ecofeminism, and deep ecology. So, in eco-capitalism, defends the possibility of creating a sustainable capitalism system where economic growth is compatible with nature. So, in this system, the protection of the environment is offered as another service within the free market. So, assuming that the increasing presence of environmentalists, consumers will make those companies that are not ecologically sustainable disappear. So, in eco-socialism, based on the Marxist analysis, it considers capitalism to be incompatible with the protection of the environment. So, arguing that the sustainable integration of society into nature is only possible within a socially economy oriented towards human needs instead of capital accumulation. So, in ecofeminism, this trend assumes that the domination and the destruction of nature are the consequences of a patriarchal society. So, it is that oppresses women and therefore argues that the best way to protect the environment is through the destruction of this patriarchy. So, the fourth branches is deep ecology. So in deep ecology this is a more philosophical and spiritual aspect of environmentalism. So it is based on ecocentrism, the idea that considers human in the same level of importance as any other living being within the ecosystem. So that it becomes the main element. So it defends that environmentalism should seek to protect nature independent of its instrumental benefits of human use. So ang ecologism is not environmental does not equal. So environmentalism does not equal. So now let's see some ideas that tend to be associated with ecologism but are not the same. So again, environmentalism does not equal to ecologism. So veganism. Veganism is the Veganism is the refusal of consuming animal products and services. So, although there are people who are vegan for environmental reasons, so naaman dyan sa kita, naaman dyan ubang tao nga vegetarian. So, these are two different ideologies. Being vegan does not imply being an environmentalist or vice versa. So, being vegetarian, dili na nag-imply nga environmentalist na ka. Or vice versa. So, in animal liberation, this movement seeks to end the use of animals for human benefits and the recognition of their rights. So, not only it is a different movement from environmentalism, but some even consider them incompatible. So, in spirituality, there are types of environmentalism with a greater spiritual background, such as the deep ecology movement. However, environmentalism does not imply a belief of any kind. So you can be a believer, a theist, or agnostic and still be environmentalist. So, environmentalism and ecologism are two strains of what has come to be labeled the green environment or the greens with or without a capital G, though the terms environmentalism and ecologism were once used interchangeably. Most people would now discern as distinction between them. So, environmentalists believe that green issues, however important they are, can be addressed within the existing political and economic structures. So to succeed with this would require wise government, appropriate legislation, and the voluntary adoption of environmentally sound practices by consumers. So, sa mga issues nga akong natackled, ang ma-succeed ra dyan niya siya is ang wise ang government. So, aron ma-succeed ang kanang issues nato, dapat active pud ang government, dapat wise pud ang government nga unsaon pamaagi, unsaon pagsolba sa atong problem. So, ecologists deny that this is possible. The environmental crisis is so great, they believe that only a thoroughgoing reorganization of the political, social, and economic system would achieve a solution. So, this would necessitate a massive change in human values. So, sa mga issues, ningon daw ang ecologists nga imposible kayo ni nga masulbad sa mga government to be wise. So, ang ilang na kanang advice is na advice is dapat ang mga tao is your organization is mga of the political and social and economic system aron masulbad, aron they should kanang appeal sila mga organization about sa environment aron masolusyon, aron maggrupo ta nga masolusyon. So, this would ingon ang ecologists nga this would a massive change in human values. So, sa pamaagi sa organization, solbad daw niya ang atong mga problema. So, in other words, ecologism has a wider scope than environmentalism, as it involves all ecosystems on Earth, while environmentalism only tackles the direct environment. So, ang ecologism is general. So, ang environmentalism is nag-focus siya sa ecosystem sa Earth, while environmentalism is nagtackle sa environment. So, we will end this quote. Let's nurture the nature so that we can have a better future.